Hello, everybody. Welcome to UAP Book Club. I don't know what number it is, but it is the first one of 2023, right? 23. Yep. I had to think about that for a second. It still sounds weird to say. But today, as you may know, we are covering the UFO Rabbit Hole by Kelly. Oh, Kelly, what's this here? There it goes. And we're very proud of Kelly. But before we get to how proud of Kelly we are and how awesome it is to know her and how great her book is, I want to say hello to anybody listening now or later and say hi to everybody in the chat. Thank you for being there. I'm going to do a quick, please follow me on Spotify. The link's pinned at the top. I just started moving all my old shows to that because people suggested it, and then I talked to Kelly and other people, and they're like, just do it. Oh, wait. Or they're like, why haven't you done that yet? So in the process of moving shows over, so it's audio only, and you can listen to my beautiful voice along with my guest's beautiful voice on the way to wherever you're going or whenever you're doing chores or whatever. So let's get into it. Before we get into the book, I want to ask everybody to introduce themselves, just in case somebody's not watching and listening on audio. Who are you? Why are you here? And we haven't done an introduction on book club for a while. I just kind of assume everybody knows everybody. So, Graham, who are you? Why are you here?
Member of UAP Media UK. I'm also the author of UFOs Before Roswell, the book about the Foo Fighters, the World War II, and also Flying Saucer Fever and Dawn of the Flying Saucers. So yes, and I was also your first guest on UAP Book Club regarding the Foo Fighters book. So thanks very much.
Yes, and I was so nervous to ask you. Ask Penny. It's like, Penny, I'm going to message him.
Pussycat, really.
And then Vinny, why are you here? Who are you? Vinny Adams.
Vinny Adams. Yeah, Vinny Adams. I'm the owner of Disclosure Team, member of UAP Media UK, friend of many, and I'm here because I like to hang out with my tribe, talk about UFO books, and spread the message.
All right, Nathan, why are you here, and who are you?
It's a big question. Why are any of us here?
Oh, wait.
Oh, man.
Excellent segue to things I often like to talk about, which you can find on a couple of shows I'm on. So Liminal Frames with Darren Exo Academian and Calling All Beings with DJ and Deb. And, of course, Perturbations with Kelly, which I think we'll have one coming out this month. Yeah, enjoy talking about this stuff. Enjoy digging into it, asking the ultimate questions, searching for meaning. That's why I'm here.
Yay, Nathan. And then we have J. Christopher King. Why are you here? Who are you? You do a lot, but please introduce yourself.
I'm J. Christopher King, though you already kind of spoiled that for everybody. I'm a co-founder and director of the Experiencer Group, which is a private community online for folks that have had anomalous experiences of any and all kinds. I also co-host Witness Citizen with the great Sean, an incorrigible Sean Rosh, who is not here today, though I kind of wish he was, because for some reason he's always grumpy on the weekends, and I don't get that.
Yeah, just harass him. Maybe he'll pop on.
Right. And yeah, I'm here because I'm really excited about talking about Kelly's book, and yeah, I'm a voracious reader, and so it's really. So I love having the excuse of having a new book to read and being able to talk about it with y'all.
Yeah, if you ask Jay could fire off like 20 amazing books just like off the top of his head. I don't know how he does it, but it's amazing. And then finally, last but not least, as they say, my favorite person, Kelly Chase. She's so amazing in so many ways, but she's also our guest author and a member of book club. But besides that, Kelly, tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for that amazing intro. I'm Kelly Chase. I'm the host of UFO Rabbit Hole, also the author of the UFO Rabbit Hole book series. We're talking about book 1 today. Book 2 is actually going to come out on June 1st of this year, so I'm super excited about that. And I have no idea how I got here. I've been thinking about it so much lately. A year ago, this podcast had only just kicked off. Most of you were people whose work I followed quietly. I'd barely even made a peep on UFO Twitter, and it's been a wild ride. And I'm just really grateful to be here and to have found this amazing, supportive community of like-minded weirdos. It's the best.
Perfect. So before we get into Kelly's awesome book, I kind of want to go around and ask everybody, like, what was your top UFO moment or UAP moment of 2022? Like, was there any point in 2022 that you were just like, holy shit, this is happening? Graham, you can go first.
He's got a lot to do with this.
Oh, okay.
Meeting Chris Mellon last month in New York City. That was kind of like, pinch me, is this real kind of moment. I mean, you see people on television and you kind of put them up as heroes, and you're not supposed to meet your heroes, but actually when you do, sometimes they're actually just down to earth people. He was possibly the nicest kind of millionaire I've ever met. Not that I've actually met that many millionaires, but he was so straightforward, so down to earth, and so gracious with his time. That it was something else, and just to actually be able to sit in the front row and just listen to him, just 6 foot away, talking about what they've done with the videos, and just this question and answer session he had with Leslie Kane. It was one of those pinch me. Is this kind of like a dream moment? I'm not like being kind of all kind of sort of gooey and all the rest of it. It was just one of those things that you really don't get to do in this field of research, is meet people like that. They're somebody that they're not quite on a pedestal, but they're kind of out of reach a bit. A bit like when Vinny and I met Lou Elizondo a couple of years ago. It was one of those things where it was just those really moments you just look at each other and go, is this really happening? So yeah, that was really it. But the whole event that Jay and James put on, and also with the help of you, Priscilla, and you, Kelly, that it was something else. It was a really, really great get together of people, not just the speakers, not just the content, but the fact that we were saying before, that people that can actually talk to each other in person. And we've had this thing where we've been talking virtually and we've been speaking to each other over the internet for years, but getting together with people is brilliant, and that's how you develop relationships and move things forward.
Absolutely. Vinny.
I mean, 2022 was a huge year for me personally on many, many levels, many aspects. I got to hang out with Graham and the other guys at UAP Media UK at a few events, which was great. Got to meet Nathan as well as a host of other people, met DJ and like I said, so many other people that we only really interact with virtually. And those face-to-face connections have become so important to me for just building friendships and collaborations. I suppose my overall highlight of 2022 would be my trip to Colombia to investigate the mysterious light phenomena and film phenomenology season 1, to be able to travel halfway around the world with a really amazing team of people, including good friends, experiencing something anomalous. And yeah, I mean, that was the highlight. It was something that has become a passion. There is no better feeling than boots on the ground, and I just can't wait to repeat it with a certain somebody in this group.
Oh yes, so yeah. Kelly, I was gonna save you for last, but I'm gonna go this way now. Not that you can see my mouse, but my mouse is going like that.
Well, the events in New York were obviously the basis of so many of my best moments of the year. I think my absolute favorite moment was sitting backstage at this last event. And I'm just sitting there quietly trying to be invisible because Chris Mellon and Leslie Keane and Whitley Strieber are sitting there having a conversation, and I'm just soaking it in. And I'm sitting
on the wall. We're just like,
yeah, I'm sitting on the couch eating grapes next to Jeffrey Kripal, and I'm just sitting to thinking to myself, how the hell did I get here? And almost as if he could like hear my thoughts, Jeff turns to me, and in the nicest way ever, like he's the kindest, most charming human. If you've ever
he really is.
Was just like, he's like, so who are you and how the hell did you get here? And I was literally just asking myself the same question. And it was just so funny to me. It was like such a beautiful, wonderful moment, because I was also like, man, I have no idea, no clue, but very just happy to be here. It was the best.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I remember being back there too and thinking the same thing, just like, some people like just listening to like these people that I admire so much that have done so much in the community, just talk amongst each other. I'm just like, A, I feel like an idiot. B, oh my God, like they're just like talking. about this amazing stuff, about UFOs, about phenomena type stuff, you know, but just to see it in person and everybody together was amazing. What about you, Jay?
I mean, yeah, I gotta agree with 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 the rest of you for the most part. I mean, first of all, kind of like trudging up the mountain of putting that stuff together, putting the conferences together, and then just like watching it all play out at like some amazing Rube Goldberg experiment that like I couldn't have possibly imagined even a year ago. I mean, the first time I spoke at a conference was this year or last year at the Archives conference in Houston. And that was just in March, and then by October, you know, organizing it, it's like just a real trip. The whole year was a trip. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I agree about like being up there with Leslie and Chris and just like, you know, what? how's this real? And then also I agree as well, you know, not to be unoriginal, but being backstage, and I think we all had the same look on our face, because there's kind of like a moment where a couple of these people were introducing themselves to each other at the same time. I won't mention who, and I think, you know, we all had the same geeked out like expression on our face, just like
like
totally
looking over the fence, like
yeah. And it was really, you know, I'd practiced in the mirror, like, oh yeah, you know, like being casual about some of these people and stuff like that, and I just failed.
Hi, I'm
completely
Jay.
failed in the moment. Yeah, but it was great.
You were grinning like an idiot, as were we. We were all grinning like complete and utter idiots.
Yeah, yeah.
It's true. It's really true. Yeah. So I'll go with that. But
So
yeah, and just being with all of you, except for Vinny. Sorry, Vinny, but being with all of you, all the rest of you in person. Well,
I was
thinking of
there
you
virtually, and I was watching you all walk past the screen, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I can see! Oh, I can see!" So, you know, and it was. I was just like, it's like train spotting, but like friend spotting, you know. So it was cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
I'll put that link too, because you can get like the whole thing now to watch for like
right.
an amazing price. So I will add the link in the description, but I do have Jay's link in there, and I think it's on my Linktree. So in case you guys missed it or anything, and then also their YouTube channel is on there as well. So I'll add all the Inquiry to Anomalous stuff to the description. So if somebody's listening or watching later, they can just go there and find everything they need. Nathan,
Yeah.
what about you?
I mean, look, 2022 is the year of partnerships and of forging relationships. So getting to see every single person on screen this year in person was incredible. To remove the Anomalous from Anomalous podcast, I got to actually get to meet some of these people from these podcasts that I love and get to know them, who they are, what they're about. You know, there were challenges this year as well, I think, in the overall community, but to me, the kind of trial by fire is something that makes us stronger. And so much is happening through the relationships that have been built over this last year. So many projects are in the works. So many ideas are in a sort of incubation state right now. I'm really excited about what is coming. Let's not also forget the legislation that just got passed, the whistleblower legislation, huge on that front. It's very possible we could see some really big things come out of that in the very short term. You know, I remind myself that something really destabilizing could happen at a moment's notice in this topic, because it has that potential. So 2023 really could be quite phenomenal. We'll see.
Well said. And I can agree about 2022 as well. With the whole podcasting for me, I used to hate talking in front of people. Long story short, this has been part of my life, blah, blah, blah. But it was like, last year was just like fun for me. Like just meeting everybody and just like being part of the community, talking to, like, having an excuse to harass my favorite authors, you know. But I'm just gonna say New York. Like the last time I was in New York, I was like a kid. Like I was like barely 21. I don't remember half the trip. I flew out there with a bunch of random people from Las Vegas, and then Jay and Jay basically. I'm not as good as pointing as Graham did, like an awesome point thing. Okay, but you know, directionally challenged. Wherever you are, Jay, somewhere. But thank you, Jay, first of all, for becoming such a great friend, and all of you really. But yes, obviously going to the anomalous conferences, because I did not think that I was ever going to meet some of these people, like Whitley Strieber, everybody listed, everybody that was a guest for the past two just blew my mind, and being close to them and then meeting the community on top of it all was just I mean, like, it was just amazing to be in that energy. And people were leaving the conference and they were just glowing. Like, everybody spirits were just lifted, and you could tell it kind of refreshed so many people. But yes, I was so chicken. I didn't talk to Chris Mellon because I was like, what am I even gonna say to him? Hi.
Yeah.
I'm Priscilla. And I was like, I'm gonna do it at dinner, and then like he left. So so one day I will talk to him one day. But yeah. So New York in general, all the legislation, even though people like complain about a lot, you have to realize so much has happened. And that's not saying like, oh, we think the government's going to give us all of it at once, but there is some accountability happening. So I'm happy for that. And then also, I'm happy about so many great books coming out this year. And that brings us to our whole purpose. Somebody has to show it because my screen's being wild. UFO Rabbit Hole book by Kelly Chase. So I'm going to start. If you didn't read it, but you're familiar with the podcast, please. Vinny,
You get a pass, Vinny.
Vinny's like he usually reads most.
I do normally, but Christmas was chaos.
Oh yeah, it definitely was chaos for everybody. But yeah, so if you have anything you would like to say to Kelly, even about her podcast, as we go around, you can do that too.
Do.
So you can give your review on that. My initial, this is a book. The UFO Rabbit Hole podcast book is the UFO Rabbit Hole book is the book that you gift to people if they're new to the subject and they want something to read. Like even my husband looked at it and was like, rational science based, I need to read that book. That's for me. So he'll be reading your book. But it's something to give to people that are new to the subject and want an engaging style of writing, because I found that the way Kelly writes is, if you haven't heard her talk, it's like she's reading it to you, but she also has this like quick sense of humor. Sometimes it's dry, but it comes through in the writing, like in the best way. I think dry sense of humor, that's like my favorite. But she doesn't just say like, here's the story, blah blah blah. You know, she goes in and her writing's actually engaging, so you can kind of visualize what she's talking about, and then the way that she approaches her search and the phenomena, because she'll tell you about it, because I want to know about your process next. But you could tell that she's like discovering this amazing thing, and she's just like in awe of it. So I love that about your book, Kelly. And it's just, everything you wrote was just so spot on, and it's factual, but it's entertaining at the same time. So that's like my whole impression of the book. So we're going to go around and do that. Graham?
If you've heard the UFO Rabbit Hole podcast, then this is almost Kelly basically speaking to you as though it was a podcast, an extended or a very extended podcast episode. It's a very conversational tone that she adopts or seems to adopt in the book, but it's very friendly as well. It's very very accessible. And for those of you who haven't heard the UFO Rabbit Hole podcast, well, why not? why aren't you listening to it? It's really good. You get a lot of information here. There are some tangents, but they're not tangents that sort of lead you off track. In fact, some of them there was one I was reading about this kind of bacteria that live in real extreme environments, and I started to look it up because I was fascinated by this particular this little sidetrack. But it all neatly brings you back to the story that Kelly's trying to tell. So there's some interesting tidbits along the way that you wouldn't necessarily associate with a book like this, but actually they are part and parcel of the kind of thing that she's trying to get across to people. And it starts from, well, I guess quite sort of a contemporary angle. It's just talking about the 2017 video straight away, so it's not a history in terms of it in a chronological order. So that's quite nice as well. So it's not just very very formal. But yeah, it's a very accessible book, and as you say, Priscilla, it's definitely the one that you can give to somebody for Christmas who isn't necessarily too au fait with the UFO subject beyond what they see in the headlines in the newspapers or on the TV, and they can get straight into it without much fuss. And that's what you really need for people who maybe not have huge of attention span, but they want something they can get the teeth into and get a huge amount of information very, very quickly.
Perfect. And I agree with all that too. Vinny, so you weren't able to read the book, but you have listened to the podcast. So what are your thoughts on her? This is, I guess, this is a little bit of a podcast review, or what you think about it.
No, absolutely. And it was literally funny for what Graham said, because he said that he listened to or read something and it made him go off and research something. And that's happened to me while listening to Kelly's podcast. And I've been there on my phone listening and had to stop and go to my notes to write something down to then go and research. And it's great that Graham said it as well, because that just goes to show that, it influences people to go and do more, which is always fascinating. But one thing that I really do find interesting about the book is just this couple of sentences that are on the Amazon page where you can buy the book. And I just want to read that out to anybody that's watching or listening, because it really sums it up really well in a couple of sentences. So it says, the UFO Rabbit Hole is a structured, rational, science-based deep dive into these puzzling developments in an attempt to answer that very question. Grounded enough for skeptics, accessible enough for noobs, and meticulously researched enough for the most battle-hardened ufologists. And those three things are absolutely true of the podcast, and obviously I'm sure that they're true of the book as well. So, I'm sorry I didn't get to read the book Craziness of Christmas, but I know for a fact if it's anything like the podcast, it's just going to be an amazing continuation of the great work that Kelly's been doing.
And I think that Vinny should read your audiobook. Didn't that sound great?
That was great.
So
That
Vinny
was
can
great.
record the audiobook. I'm just kidding. That's not real, guys. I just said
My
that.
people will call you Vinny.
All right, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, I got to disagree with everybody. I really didn't enjoy the book. I really wish the cover wasn't AI art. I mean, we've seen so much AI art. No, I'm just kidding. It's an amazing book. Look, it's incredible. I'm a huge fan of Kelly. I'm a huge fan of this book, echoing everything that everyone said. When someone usually says that a book is really accessible, sometimes what they mean is that it's very simple. This book isn't simple. It's accessible and incredibly rich and deep and meaningful and cogent. It's digestible. You want to keep reading it because you're not exhausted from the content. You're encouraged. So all of the things that I want in a UFO book, it's all here. It is an excellent on-ramp to the topic, recommending it to my wife to read. And I would recommend to anyone who has an interest in this, because it does take you through her own journey of discovery, and it explores all of these different areas that we need to explore, not in a shallow way, in a way that says, hey, these are interesting, and there's more to that. There's something here that I can't quite put my finger on. It elicits more questions, more searching. This is the kind of content that we need, that creates that curiosity, that hunger, that thirst for answers. And the answers aren't easy, and she's not offering any easy answers either. So it's, I think it's incredibly balanced, highly enjoyable, funny, all the great things. I can't say enough positive things about it. So buy it. What are you waiting for?
And that is in the description, guys. So you can go order it right now. It'll be there 2 to 3 days if you have Prime. All right, Jay. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely loved it as well. I've been a fan of the podcast for a while, and it was so great when I received the book, opening it up in the mail and just being like, holy shit, here it is. Look at this, you diabolical genius. Like, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later, but I mean, just the whole kind of chicken and the egg problem of like, you made a podcast and then the book, and then was it the book and then the podcast? Because it all worked so synergistically, so well together. And I'm like, why the hell have I been wasting my time just like yammering without any form to myself? Because like we could all have our own books, but Kelly's the genius. So I'm really proud of what you've done here, and I think it's incredible. Like you do such a great, approachable, accessible, conversational job of approaching the big mysteries, and making it seem, and you make it seem easy, and it's not easy at all. Like we all struggle with this, and we all try to figure out our own approaches to it. Everybody in this room, right, and everybody in the chat in their own way too. And you boiled so much down, and you did such a great job of resisting the temptation to land on easy answers, like Nathan was saying, and I admire that so much. And, I think it is a perfect primer to hand to anybody. You know what I mean? I think it's a perfect primer to hand to so many people that might, be, open-minded, but not really, not have only kind of a passing understanding of the field in general. The fact that you end with like 3 awesome, solid chapters on kind of debating the ancient aliens and kind of like the ancient alien myth or reality, however you want to look at it. Going through the TTSA stuff, kind of like handling the last 5 years of ufology, especially in such depth, and just the major theories. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Like how you've been able to, that could all go in a book that's like 250 pages. It's astonishing. So
And it's only part 1.
Yeah.
I
It's
know.
yeah, it's so well
Wow.
done. So Kelly, 2 things. If you want to react to everything everybody just said, you can do that. But I'm going to ask my first question, and then we're going to go around and everybody can ask a question and to Kelly, because she is kind of our guest. So I love hearing the way authors, like, I love their process, and I love how each individual can write about a topic that is familiar, but in their own way. You said that you have a background in philosophy, and you also have a business background. So I think that your approach was very interesting. So what was your writing process like? And then also, like, why did you finally write the book, and what was that like for you?
Well, first of all, thank you all. That was very kind, and I appreciate you all so much. It's really gratifying to hear people talk about the book in the way that I hoped that people would talk about the book, and that you create something and you put all your best effort into it, but the way that it's received in the world is ultimately something that you can't really control. So it's very gratifying, and I appreciate it a lot. For me, when I started, I mean, 2 years ago, I didn't even believe in UFOs, and they weren't on my radar on any level whatsoever. I think some people are surprised that I've been able to tackle this with as much kind of like breadth and depth as I have. And really, it's just because what I realized once I started learning about UFOs was that there was this sort of like weird, disparate group of what I felt like were random topics that I had been interested in my entire life, which, consciousness and ancient religions and alternative archaeology and philosophy and, theories of reality and, so all of these different things. So I'd kind of already had that, but what I didn't realize was that like UFOs and the phenomenon are really kind of the thing that tied all of these together, and that gave me a different perspective and a deeper perspective on all of them. So in some ways I felt like I cheated a little bit. I'd already done 75% of the work. What I needed to learn about was UFOs at that point. So that was very lucky and helpful for me. When I started and really got into UFOs, I was looking for something like this. I was just trying to get some kind of like the lay of the land, like even just to see in one place what are the different theories about what UFOs could be, because when you come to it as a layman, it's like you think it's aliens or nothing, so I was really looking for something like that. And I have a background in marketing and content in particular, and so this is something that I've been doing for the last 15 years, was really trying to figure out, how do you take complex sets of information and put it into a format that people can understand, that breaks through the noise, that meets them where they are with the message that they're ready to receive. Like that's basically really the heart of what marketing is and what content is supposed to do. And so, and I spent years working on things like I helped create these sets of online training programs for marketers, and so I kind of already had the experience of, how do I take my 10,000 hours of experience and expertise and put it into some webinars that are not going to make someone want to kill themselves out of boredom, and that will actually give them the things that they need, and in the right order. Because, it's really difficult when you've got like this big mass of information in your head to figure out who is your audience and what do they know? What do they need? What they find to be most important about the topic may not be what you find to be most important about the topic. But if you start from where you are, they're going to ignore you. You have to start where they are. And so that was really my process with the book, was just kind of starting at the beginning. And I had just been down this, through this journey myself, and it was so fresh. And so in a way I was kind of recreating my own journey and creating the resource that I wish existed, because there's so much information on this topic. It is so overwhelming. Once someone actually dives into it, you're like, holy cow, there is just, I think all of us, we joke about, we're all about 50 books behind on the books that we want to read. There were a million books out there. And I didn't want to just create another book that was maybe not, because I'm not an expert, I'm not a PhD. I haven't been doing this for years. I had one thing to offer, which was, can I create something that will answer these kind of initial questions that people new to the subject have? And can I make it interesting and engaging and broad enough that they continue to look? And I didn't feel like I needed to offer any answers. It makes me so happy when I hear that it causes people to go research things, because I think that's the magic of the phenomenon, is that once you engage with it, even intellectually, it starts to infiltrate your life in like weird and unexpected ways. And I truly believe that everyone has their own path. And so I don't think I have to give anyone any answers. I really just need to give them, I just need to give them the questions. I just, and just the confidence that they're not crazy for pursuing this, because everything about our culture tells people you're crazy if you even look into this. And so starting from a place where you're like, no, for real, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but you're not crazy for looking at it. And one final thought, going back to something Jay said about like, kind of the structure of this. The way I did this is actually very similar to how we do things in marketing. Like if I were going to create a bot, like if I were going to create a new training course or a new ebook or something like that, I would usually, like a really common marketing strategy would be that you would write it as a series of blog posts, start to build your audience. And also you get all kinds of feedback. There's a ton of edits in this book that aren't in the podcast from people reaching out to me and being like, girl, that's not correct. And, going back and fixing it. And so you kind of crowdsource the feedback, you crowdsource some of the editing, and it kind of just builds itself. So I just built it the way I would build any other piece of content, just one brick at a time. So yeah, it's been really interesting to me how it's all come together, and I've had a complete blast writing it.
And it shows it's not just, I really felt like you were giving me a little insight to your journey as I was reading it. So all that's amazing. And then you guys just got some free marketing tips from Kelly. So, so Graham, would you have any questions for Kelly about the book?
Yeah, well, first of all, just a statement. I mean, I really appreciate the fact that you had footnotes and you sourced the information that you had in the book, because obviously I'm somebody who does that myself, and I really appreciate somebody else taking the time and the trouble to do that. The question I would have, first of all, would be just to ask, what kind, which authors, if any, inspired you, in terms of, before you even put pen to paper, and did you sort of like use anybody's work to think, oh yeah, that's a good kind of style of writing to adopt, or was this definitely just coming from you in terms of a kind of the conversational style that you adopt through the podcast?
That's a great question. I think the style is very much mine, just because writing has been such a big part of my career. I feel very comfortable in that voice. In some ways, I mean, part of the reason it's scripted is because there's just so much information that I want to pack in there that it almost needs to be. But part of it's that honestly, I feel like I sound a lot more intelligent when I'm more comfortable in the written word. Like that is really my lane. I'm not afraid of public speaking. I don't feel like I'm a terrible speaker, but I'm really in my strength when I'm writing. And so that was for me just sort of my happy place and my safe place. But I've been inspired by countless people. Diana Walsh Pasulka, I think, has written probably one of the most important books on the topic. And I just am a huge admirer of hers. I love Jeffrey Kripal's work, and obviously Valet and Keel. And I mean, I could go on forever. I'm just sort of, it's incredible to me how many amazing writers there are in this community. Love Graham's books. I've got all those on my shelf as well. And it's really a wonderful thing. Like I think I forget who said it, but there's a famous quote that's great stories happen to people who know how to tell them. And I do think that the phenomenon has found so many, Leslie Kean, I could just go on and on, all of these names of people who we are very blessed in this community to have some incredible writers who can just, number one, like blow your mind with the content, but also can write you just some really profoundly beautiful prose at the same time. And I'm just always in awe at the talent that we have in this community.
I recognize that about being in your lane or in your comfort zone by writing. Yeah, that sums me up as well. I mean, I've spoke publicly before and I've done presentations, but I'm much happier when I'm behind my desk, just typing away.
Same.
That's awesome. And Vinny, do you have any questions for Kelly?
I do, yeah. As someone myself who obviously has a podcast, and it's an interview-based podcast, 120 plus interviews. One thing that I've always aspired or wanted to attempt was this individual coming up with just me talking, and I'm just not there yet. And so I'd want to know, what would your advice be to somebody wanting to kind of take that next step, to feel the confidence? Because I'm confident that I would have enough information to talk about something, but to not deliver it so much. And then I guess that question could even boil down to anybody wanting to start a podcast to talk about this subject. What would your advice be?
That's a great question. I really think that it comes down to, I'll say this. This is my first book that I've written, but I've had other podcasts before that have done moderately well. Not nearly as well as the UFO Rabbit Hole has done already. And I've been really surprised to see how this project has taken off. And I really think that what's different about this is that this is my passion. Like, this is coming from, in the past, I had, the character that I was being, or what I was trying to be through that work, was a version of me. I wasn't lying exactly, but it was also kind of someone else's idea of who I should be. It wasn't, and I think that there's something really, really powerful about tapping into your own authenticity and putting out into the world the thing that only you can make. And so I don't think it necessarily needs to be scripted if that's not who you are. I think that whatever kind of work that you're doing, you should do the thing that only you can do, because all of us have a unique perspective. All of us, I truly believe, have our own unique purpose on this planet. And I think our number one job is to figure out what that is and to do it. And so I would say, do the thing that like I said, do the thing that only you can do. This book and this podcast is a pure expression of my truest, nerdiest, least ashamed self. Like, this is the true Kelly. And I feel like that really resonates with people, and it doesn't matter what form that takes. It just needs to be you. And I know that sounds very woo and silly, but it's one of those things that's cliche because it's true.
It's not. I think that everybody needs that. Kelly's like the sister or the best friend or like friend that you always wanted. That's what she just offers so much support to everybody. Even talking to you behind the scenes, you're just a beautiful person. So everything you said is not, well, maybe it's a little nerdy because you're talking. I like it. It's probably nerdy, but
nerdy
we're
is
into
good.
it. We're into it. All right. So Nathan, I know Nathan's got an awesome questions and comments.
So we're at this kind of point now where this is like the right time for this book, so in some ways, like, as you pointed out, we've been suffering from a book that kind of really wraps it all up. Like, there's just stuff everywhere, and we've read, you listed all the books earlier, Valet and Keel, and my brother and I were chatting about the same kind of thing. Like, where do you start and who do you read? And it's, but your book really does take all of that content. So in some ways, we're kind of standing on the shoulders of those giants, right? And we're able to tell a new story that is clearer, more concise. And you also talk about establishment science or establishment understandings, right? I thought that was really good that you spent time looking at that in the book and calling that out. And so what I really want to ask is, in light of all of that, what is it in your opinion that the synthesis of this material is leading Kelly to, that might not be an establishment viewpoint, that may be something that we need to take a closer look at going forward?
Ooh, I love this question. For me, the book and the podcast are maybe only superficially about UFOs, if I'm being honest. Like, my purpose here isn't even necessarily to convince people that UFOs are real. What I really want more than anything else, and what all of this has brought me to, is just the idea that our kind of strict materialist view of the world, that is kind of the default view, especially in the Western world, that we are not more than our physical bodies, that we are, that there's nothing that science can't really measure, and if science can't measure it, it's not real. That whole viewpoint. And that is a viewpoint that I subscribe to for most of my life, and certainly all of my adult life. And it's very fresh for me. 2 years ago, I would have thought I was a nut job if I knew all the things. This is like not a predictable path for me on any level. And so for me, but as soon as I saw the fact that this traditional view that we're given in school is not all that there is, I think that because you have to teach, there has to be order and structure when you teach people things. And I think that our schools I don't think it's conspiracy on any level. I think that our schools are doing their best to educate people, but you can't teach every high school senior, every different version of what could potentially be going on with quantum mechanics, for instance. And so I think that most people, they get kind of like the one sort of establishment view, and they get this impression that this is established hard science. And so they have every excuse in the world to never look at it again. And I think that for me, not only was it absolutely astounding when I saw it, it became so important to me to tell other people, because everything about my life changed for the better when I had that perspective shift. I am a kinder person. I am a more compassionate person. I'm a less stressed out person. I'm a happier person. I have become the version of me that I haven't seen since I was a kid, and that I kind of thought was dead and wasn't coming back. But here she is, and she's having a great fucking time. Like, I'm having the best time. And so for me, that's my goal. My goal is just to poke enough holes that people go and look for their own answers. And I'm not too invested in what those answers are. I hope that what people see is that there's more to this existence, that we have been told that we are more special and beautiful and profound, each of us in our own being, than we ever could imagine. Like, that's really what I hope that people take away, because ultimately I feel like that's where this work really leads you. And so for me, it's not really about UFOs. UFOs are the fun hook.
I love it. That's a Trojan book right there, guys. It's it'll sneak its way into your heart to change your world. So yeah, I love hearing that.
That makes a lot of sense, and I agree with that too, because I think that everybody here, the UFO thing, and it's funny that I never thought of it this way, but you said it earlier. Like, there's all these other things happening, and UFO kind of ties it together. I had always thought like other things tied the UFOs in with this other stuff, but it's interesting to hear how everybody has that realization that it's all connected, and it's making you happy as a human. And it's a very human, it seems otherworldly, right? Or even an other dimensional, but it's very human to be curious about this stuff. So you do it in a way, again, in your book, like you said, ask questions. And a lot of times I was reading the book, I was like, oh my gosh, like I knew about this and this, but I never put the two together until you wrote about it that way. So Jay, it's your turn for a question.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I really resonate with what everyone else has been saying here. I completely agree. I think I love that the kind of strategy of embracing the mysteries and like that, and that can be, and I love the way that you're kind of talking, Kelly, about embracing an authenticity in yourself, and how that can kind of create bigger rewards and more happiness and just kind of like a general like quality of life issue. And I completely agree with that. I completely resonate with that altogether. You know, that's been my experience the last couple of years, and it's wild. I mean, it's wild how much it can change about one's life. And it feels like sometimes it's probably why people like Sharon Hewitt-Rowlett and Mike Cleland and others like get into this vein of thinking about synchronicities and high strangeness and stuff like that, because it seems weird but true that if you kind of walk towards that authenticity, that like doors, like weird doors that you didn't even know were there, just start opening like crazy. It's bizarre. It's so bizarre, but it's true. And it has to be, and it seemingly has to be based around like what you being yourself, right? Or any of us being ourselves. And like, it's just, you know, it's kind of the closest thing to being like, oh, maybe we are in a simulation, because this is some magical shit right here. This is some absolutely magical shit. But along those lines, you know, Kelly, I know that you work methodically and very hard at what you're doing, and you make it seem easy, but in fact it's not. And like similarly, a lot of us in our own ways do the same thing, and a lot of us get tempted that once we master something, or once we figure something out, you know, that's like here and seems like it's the top of the mountain, then as soon as that happens, you see this other mountain just out, you know, just off in the distance, and you're like, got to do that one next. You know, Vinny's like, okay, time to go tackle an eons old mystery in South America. Like, that's what I got to do. I figured out this podcast thing. I got to go to South America. You know, everybody has their own version of this. So my long-winded question for you is like, now that you've made like arguably the best 250-page primer on like the world's craziest mysteries, what are you going to do in 2023 that could possibly, that's like the bigger mountain? You know, you've got volume 2, but what else do you want to do? Is there a bigger project for you?
There are a series of bigger projects that I've recently quit my job to do this full time, which I was very scared to do. But like you said, magically, within 24 hours of me quitting my job, I had probably like, and I can't actually talk about all of them right now because there's still some things in the works, but I had like 3 huge opportunities fall in my lap, just literally phone calls. It was the wildest thing I've ever experienced, like the weirdest day, but things I can talk about. So I will be wrapping up season 1 of the UFO Rabbit Hole this year. That'll be wrapped up in May. And then I'll take a short little hiatus until July. And then in July, I'm starting season 2, which is going to be much more ambitious. Will involve more collaboration. And season 1 is really kind of the intro to the like nuts and bolts history, you know, giving people the full context and sort of range of the core, like the most popular possibilities, what it could be, and that sort of thing. Season 2, I'm taking on the whole experiencer issue, because I think that that's something that is much scarier to take on. I don't have to tell many of you that. It's something that people are much more resistant to. And so I'm sort of building up in this season to hopefully get them to that point. And then next season is going to be about experiencers, theories of reality, psi phenomena, you know, abductions, like all of that sort of thing, and trying to do what I've done with this season of not necessarily giving an answer, but giving the lay of the land for people who are interested in pursuing it. I think that season 2 will actually be the end of the UFO Rabbit Hole. Because I already feel called to kind of other projects beyond that, specifically around synchronicities and theories of reality. I have a book that is outlined that I'm in the process of writing, but with everything else going, I don't think it'll come out in 2023. I think that'll be 2024. So we'll see what that all turns into. I am going to be going down this week to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base area to meet up with a bunch of people. And we are furiously working at putting together a conference down there for May, which I am extremely excited. One of my listeners, name's John Horvath, came out of nowhere and was like, hey, I'd love to do this conference down here. I've already talked to the city council and gotten the Chamber of Commerce on board. We've already booked the Hope Hotel right outside of Wright Patterson. he's like,
Oh my
can you help me
goodness.
make this a conference?
Oh
I was
my
like,
goodness.
hell yeah, dude, like, let's do this. And I'm an
Right, guys.
Ohioan. I would love to see
Everybody
this
go to
happen
Ohio.
here, so. Yeah, so I'm hopefully going to be announcing that soon after my trip down this week. Yeah, it's all kind of coming together, and even out of that opportunity, I had just mentioned to some of the people who I'm working with on that I have this dream of, I went down to the there was a Bigfoot festival. A little side passion of mine is Bigfoot.
Oh, we'll
and
talk about that. That's like a secret thing that I love too. So let's see.
Oh yeah.
No, I love Bigfoot. And we went down to this tiny little festival in this little town called Logan, Ohio, down in Southern Ohio. And, you know, I was just struck. There were all of these old researchers down there. These guys are like 70 and 80 years old now. They've written like 25, 30 books compiling all of this incredibly rich, like paranormal history of the Appalachians and the whole region. And it's just broke my heart because I just thought, oh my gosh, like these guys are going to pass on at some point. And then like, where are these books going to end up? Where is this information going to end up? And so I've had this in my heart this year that I really want to create a regional kind of archive and research library for, you know, UFO and paranormal type stuff in the Appalachians. And some people have stepped forward. We might even be able to use the conference to fund that. There's a place where we might be able to house this thing. It's incredible, the things that are
amazing.
just kind of falling together effortlessly when the phenomenon like repays you when you make the effort. It's the experience that I've had.
You made room for that though by dropping so much crap this past year, and then your job. It's just like now it's like it's created a vacuum, and we learned this in priestessing and witchy world that to get more you have to release some crap because there's no room on your plate, and then you're trying to do all this stuff and then you just get rid of some of it, and all of a sudden there's more room for things that you actually want. So I feel like you're the perfect example of that, and I'm very excited to see what you do. So congratulations. I don't even know what else to say. I'm so happy for you.
I'm excited. It's been the craziest week of my life, to be honest with you.
Well, but good, right? Crazy is good sometimes. And if it's not good immediately, it ends up being good eventually. So, but it sounds like everything's been awesome for you. You've been busy, like in the best way possible, it sounds like. So that's awesome. Yeah. We're going to be sad that UFO Rabbit Hole's limited edition, or, you know, so listen while you can.
Well, there's still probably like 30-ish more episodes coming.
Okay. So all right. We have time, guys. So don't be sad. Yeah. We got at least a year left of UFO Rabbit Hole. So guys, where do you want to go from here? Do we want to pick the book? Do you guys have anything that you didn't get to say to Kelly that you want to say?
I just like to say something that Kelly picked up on there was about authenticity, and it resonated with me. And the one thing that I've always done is try to be authentic with who I am, and so that has come across sometimes as I'm nervous. I will never be comfortable necessarily being maybe in the public eye or in front of the camera, but it is being around so many good people that I've met in this last year or two that I know are holding me strong, that have given me that confidence to continue doing what I'm doing, to push myself further. And so it is because of people like all of you guys that I'm still able to do what I do and look to that bigger mountain, as Jay says, going forward. So many things can be done when we do work together. So that old cliche, that cheesy thing that everybody kind of cringes at, is genuine, and it really does work. And I think a few of us here are proof in the pudding. So thank you, Kelly, and everyone else here.
I appreciated the bit where you said that you didn't have the answers and you weren't entirely sure what they were, and you weren't that invested in them either. I'm a believer in that as well. You know, when I write, I don't give people answers because I don't know what they are. And my kind of like mantra is, if somebody comes and says they know the answers, run like hell, because clearly they don't. There are no experts in this field. None of us are. The people who have claimed to be experts in the past, genuinely turn out not to be. The kind of people you should really steer clear of, because they're selling snake oil. So the people who stand up and admit that they don't have the answers, they're still searching for, they're still asking questions, they're still looking for these answers. Those are the people that you should be following. Those are the people who you should be listening to, because really, and as Vinny says, we work together to get those answers, but we may not get them. We might not get them in our lifetime, but that doesn't mean we should stop trying. But so a book that actually doesn't give the answers is something that we should be looking at. We shouldn't be looking at the ones that give the answers, because inevitably they'll be false. They won't be the true picture.
I agree. I would just love to say how incredible it's been for me to meet all of you through this process, and others who aren't with us in this chat right now. But I have spent my entire life, I've always had friends, I've always enjoyed like a certain level of popularity, but I've never really felt like I found my people. Like I never really felt like there was any particular group or community that felt like home to me, and I have found that here. And speaking to what you were saying, Vinny, about authenticity, like I just think that I think that was on me that I didn't find that, because I think I was just like not vibrating at my true frequency. And when I did, suddenly you find the other people who do as well. But it's just been so incredible for me to meet all of you. And I have said so many times, and how important it is to me that in this community, at least those of us who are serious about this, I think, we don't treat each other like competition. We treat each other like colleagues. It's like we all work for, the Visible College Incorporated or something, and we're all just
absolutely,
we're all just colleagues. We're all just helping each other out. And like, thank you to all of you for being so incredibly just welcoming and kind and supportive, and for being my friends as well. I just appreciate it so much.
I'm back at you. I have a question. Just I don't know if it's like a general chat question, but because I just for folks watching, like I could talk with these people forever. So I would love to talk all day long with you guys. But so Kelly, like a lot of my perspective on this is that, and I think your book gets at this, is that our current understanding, our current scientific leanings, and our the peer review process, which you spent some time talking about. We've gotten pretty good at, I think, like jettisoning a lot of the old ways, kind of like talking down to our mythologies and putting them in these little boxes, and sort of writing off a lot of our human history as just like these fantastical ideas and wishful thinking and wrongheadedness, because our science has come along and it's fixed all that now. And I just wonder, how do you see, or do you see a way forward where our institutions can kind of make room at the table for some of this part of ourselves that we have, I think, we've kind of cut off? How do we put that back on and incorporate that into our pursuit of information, of discovery?
That's a great question. And I don't know that I totally have the answer, but I can tell you what I hope for. I do think that part of it is that it's going to be hard for the thing about disclosure, or even if something short of disclosure, even like what you're talking about, just putting things back on the table that we've taken off the table, and in academics and science and all of these things. I think that we're up against a lot of kind of the same issues that we're having with disclosure within the government, which is that there's going to be a lot of people with egg on their face. There's a lot of people who have built entire careers around one kind of thinking, and this is a real challenge to that. And I say in the book, and I've said often, whereas in the government, I think that there probably are some conspiracies and factions and things going on that are keeping that information from coming out. I don't believe that about academia. I don't think that it's a conscious conspiracy. I don't think that they're doing this on purpose. I think that it's really difficult when you are built your entire life within one paradigm, and then you have to knock that down. And especially when that paradigm has become your identity and your livelihood and your life's work, I think that we have to have a lot of compassion for what that looks like. And I think that we also have to really model for people that the conversation that we need to have about accountability in with the government around these issues is not the same conversation that we need to be having with academics about this issue. Because these people, I think these are people who are very largely working in good faith, and who believe that they're on the right side of this. And I think that it might be hard for them to recognize it. But I think that we need to, number one, be just like a lot more, we need to be very compassionate and open in our approach. We need to be respectful in our approach. Because these are still people who have spent, their 10,000 hours or more becoming an expert in their field, and their minds and their experience and their expertise are still very valuable. And so, I just think we need to make room for these conversations, and just for the recognition that like the history of science and like the greatest scientists in history are just, they've been wrong more than they've been right. And so like what we just need to make it clear that what we require of our academics isn't like having all of the answers, but that they do have a really important role that doesn't cease to be important if they end up being wrong. And I think that, just taking a very human, open, compassionate approach to those conversations is what we're going to have to do, because I think otherwise we're going to make it too difficult for people to come around and say, you know what, there might be something to this.
Well said. That I didn't even think about that. These people have spent so much time building their academic careers, and then they come in and a new idea comes and they're just all of a sudden irrelevant, and that's very damaging to a human, especially if you put that much time in. And then like you said earlier, that like there's people that have sort of like adopted one idea as to what the phenomena is, and they 100% know, and this is this and this and this, and we're seeing a lot of that crumble, and we're seeing more people who we once looked to as experts kind of say, I don't know. But let's keep looking, and that's the hardest thing for some people to say, is especially you spend so much time on something. And you said you've only been studying this for like a few years. So, but imagine if all that was challenged. I can't imagine it, and it will be probably.
Well, I can understand why they might not want to listen to me,
Yeah.
Like who am I? Like,
no, but that's the thing though. So many people, it's not like everybody came out of their mom's body like with all this knowledge. Everybody has to start learning somewhere, or some of us have been like into this for a long time, but still haven't gone into like a deep research. Like it's only been the past few years where I've been, doing deeper research, because first I realized, I was learning from the other people in the community doing the years of research. Before it was just kind of like, oh, I'm interested in this weird. I knew like, oh, this is a cool UFO case, or, I'll look into that. But then I meet people like Sean or Vinny, Graham, everybody here. And I'm like, oh, I need to deepen my research in that area. But that's how we grow, learning from one another. And sometimes we often learn like, holy crap, like we have more questions than we do answers. But the rabbit hole is deep and possibly never ending. But the important part is that we're all acknowledging it as a group that realizes we don't know everything.
100%.
But Jay, you didn't get to say anything extra. Do you have anything extra? I know you can be extra.
Jay is so extra.
Jay is extra.
I'm so extra. Girl. Yeah. You know what's extra? My Jeffrey Mitchell.
Oh, you know what? I knew you were going to do that.
You
Jeffrey
thinking
Mitchell.
aloud. That's my extra.
I knew.
That's my big brag for the day.
Yeah.
I've
Voyeur.
got a Jeffrey
His
Mitchell
exclusive
fan
shirt.
thanks to Christmas. Thanks to Santa Claus. No, I completely agree with what's been said here today, and I'm just like grinning from ear to ear, because just thinking about the amount of development and growth that we've all kind of experienced, and that the community in general, if you can name it as a community, has experienced in the last year, and specifically just amongst our kind of friend group and things like that. It's kind of astonishing, and it feels really good to I was just thinking about how Kelly was like, this is the craziest week of my life, and I was thinking like, gosh, it feels like you're here and you're taking a victory lap on like the craziest week of your life in a way. And the cool part is that I was like, but it's kind of a victory lap for all of us in a really nice way. Not to toot our own horns, but it's unbelievable, and it's partially from embracing authenticity in oneself and really just going in that direction. And also, as folks here have said, that just how much finding your tribe really, really helps, you know?
Absolutely.
And similarly, like I was absolutely convinced that, you know, I remember working in television maybe about 10 years ago and just kind of like having friend after friend after friend, like spending all my time at TV sets, never being able to sleep. You know what I mean? Like kind of miserable and just being like, well, but I'm doing something, you know, I have an
Yeah.
important job. You know what I mean? And that
Right.
would be it. And like looking at my paycheck and being like, yeah, or whatever.
And now we
right?
can't sleep and we don't have a paycheck about it.
And yeah, but then I
I'm
can't
keeping this
sleep,
up.
and I would just see my friends leaving
Now you don't get
town.
to sleep and you're happy and you have cool friends. So
Exactly. Now I still don't sleep, but I've got the dopest friends ever. Yeah. So, no, but like I just imagined that I was going to get older and that like all my friends were going to leave. You know, basically that I was going to turn into my own dad or something like that. You know what I mean? Whereas just like, oh, you know, all my friends are going to move away. They're going to die. We're going to lose touch. Like what so often happens with people, maybe men especially. You know what I mean? For whatever silly reason, or reasons. But you know, that didn't happen at all, and it was 100% by like just, you know, facing my own fears about the subject and like my history with it, and just being like, okay, that's just not going to matter anymore. And like I wish I would have done it sooner, and at the same time, I don't know that it could have happened this way.
you weren't
and I'm
ready.
sure many of you probably feel the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
can't wait to see what this looks like 20 years from now.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, now you have friends. We're all far away. We all and we're not dying yet, but we are getting nerdier. We're getting nerdier by the minute. So you still have things going for you and your friend group. But I agree that the human aspect of this is that you meet people, and at the end of the day, if we only come away with like these beautiful relationships, and that's how you know things are going good for you and for everybody around you. I remember there was the yoga teacher, and he's like, one way you can measure like how your life is changing for the better is to look at your relationships. Are your relationships growing beautifully? Are they becoming more meaningful? And if that's happening, then you're doing something right, because we tend to think like money, success, all this stuff that the outside world tells us is important is the only thing that's important. And at the end of the day, like you could have all the answers and still be alone and have nobody to share that with. So now we're together, we don't have answers, and we're sharing that. So so you guys, we can definitely talk more, but I want to get everybody's book suggestions, because I don't want to keep it. I would love to keep you all day, but I know I can't. So let's start with Graham looks ready. So.
Born ready. But on this occasion, I'm not going to bother, because I've had quite a few of mine picked recently, so I'd like to give some other people a go. Plus, I've been so busy over Christmas, like Vinny.
You didn't pick a book.
That's the real reason. But it sounds better if I say the first thing. So there you go.
All right. Well, Graham's not playing today, and then
take my ball away.
I'm
not playing.
I get an extra chance. The percentage.
Yeah, Vinny gets his extra pick from Graham. He gets an extra paper. I saw him reaching for his books right now. So. All right, Vinny, your suggestion.
I am going with a book that I've started, but I've still not got a chance to reading fully. Is Earthlight's Revelation.
Oh yeah, I saw
Paul Devereaux and Dr. David Clark is a contributor. Fascinating so far, and I hope that if it gets picked, which it probably won't, I get to read it with everyone else and discuss it. Yeah, it would be really interesting, and it would help. It would really help with. It would help with my research moving into getting towards the next Columbia trip. So, yeah.
Mr. Nathan.
Oh, Pro! Look at that! Look at that!
I still haven't read it. I really want to read it. I got to meet Jeff. Like everyone said, Kelly said earlier, how nice he is.
If we get this one, we can get Jeff on, but it's got to be like at 7 o'clock in the morning on a weekend. So.
I would do it. I'd get.
I know we'd all be there. Yeah.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I met Jeff Kripal in real life. Like I had him on twice, and I was just like, you're this cool in person. And it was a funny moment where we got to dinner, and Jeff was like, oh, Priscilla, sit here. And I'm like, oh, sitting next to Jeff. I get to talk to him. And then James walks up. He's like, "Hey, you took my spot." I was like, "No, I didn't. Jeff told me to sit here." He's like, "Oh, fine."
Oh.
I was like, "The king told me to sit next to him, so sorry, James." Sorry, James.
Yeah. Sorry, James. James isn't here to defend himself, but the
We love
Gentle
you,
Giants.
James. You can make a video and defend yourself. Jay, what's your suggestion?
Gosh. Okay. Yeah. I just like 4 funny Jeff Kripal stories just flashed in front of my eyes, but I'm going to resist. I am going.
Shirts,
The one time I made Jeff sad. Okay, I'll say one thing before I go to. Okay, one time I totally miscalculated. Like Jeff, I feel like I've got a pretty decent read on Jeff's sense of humor. I thought I did, right? And then like before this last conference, he had sent what he was going to present to a few of us. I think Kelly and Priscilla.
Yeah,
both
it's
got
printed
it
and framed. Just kidding.
Nice. Yeah. And so he sent it early, which was like really, really like humble of him to be like, "Oh, I just wanted to see what you guys thought." And so but I was super,
I know, I was like, "You want our opinion?"
I know exactly, right? But I was like, I have to, like, I can't just say, "Oh, it's great." Like, I have to actually read this, and I have no time. I have 0 time right now. I'm not sleeping. I'm stressed out. Da 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 da. And so I listened to his paper using Speechify, one of those apps, while I was exercising. So I was like proud of myself for multitasking. But Speechify has this, you can do it in like AI Barack Obama voice. So I listened to Kripal's paper with Barack Obama's AI voice, and I made the terrible mistake of telling Jeff. Who hated that idea. He thought it was terrible. He was like, "Oh, you really shouldn't do that. No." And I was like, "No, I think it's funny." He's like, "It's not funny."
Oh,
Oh man! I thought about it the rest of the day. The rest of the day, I was like, "Oh, I bummed out Jeff Kripal."
Funny.
And then I got to sit next to him at dinner too, and so it was fun. But no, yeah, it all worked out in the end. You know what I mean? But like, just for anybody out there in the audience, now or in the future, if you use one of those apps, like what I learned is, you think you know somebody, you don't necessarily know them. Don't tell an author that you used an AI voice to listen to their book. Just don't.
Do they have like a sexy robot option so I can listen?
They do. They have like sexy like UK robot, like sexy boy robot, sexy girl robot, a bunch of them.
Don't give us any ideas. Come on.
Western cowboy boys.
But okay, so
that's what I want to listen to. But
so my book pick is Skype People by RD6 Keller Clark. I'm looking over here because it's over there. But Skype People, RD6 Keller Clark. I thought it would be dope. It's a great travelogue. It's conversational, and it tackles these mysteries from the perspective of folks in Mexico and Central America. It's great. So
nice.
I thought that'd be a good one.
All right, Kelly.
I've been getting really into, I don't know if anybody here has watched Hellier. I'm obsessed with it.
Multiple times.
Yep. And I live in Kentucky, and I was like, I need to go to that.
Yeah, I think it's such just a masterful kind of, it really kind of gives you the feeling of what it's like to engage with the phenomenon, and to when the synchronicities start speaking to you, but you're not totally sure what they're trying to say. Yeah. It's like very interesting. I love it so much. But anyways, it's gotten me very into Keel lately. So I am going to put in The Eighth Tower by John Keel, which I think is one of my faves.
Eighth Tower? Yeah. I'm always down to read one of his books, and that's one that I actually haven't read. So.
I could stack the deck by saying that as well,
All these books are awesome. I'm psyched about any of these books.
You guys from my husband's actually still reading Operation Trojan Horse because of our book club that we did with it. So
that's awesome.
Again, I was mortified. I was like, "What? You listen to me?" But I try to talk more. I'm like,
zing.
Just for anybody that's watching live, I guess I have just popped Hellier season 1 link in the chat, because if anybody hasn't watched it, I cannot recommend it enough. I've watched it and gone back to it many times. It's strange, bizarre. engrossing, and it gives you so much to think about.
And it ties in all those weird aspects that you can't quite. It's a very
synchronicities,
the trickster part of
everything.
it. It ties in like one of his girlfriend or wife is a witch, so she ties in like her beliefs into, not her beliefs but her practice into it. And then it's just all like the ultimate thing. If you want to watch, if you want to get weirded out, watch it, because it has all those weird synchronicities and it ties a bunch of different things together. Now I want to rewatch it. So all right. Oh, I forgot mine. Okay, so Diana Pasulka had mentioned this online a while ago. It's an old book. Look at his hair. Wait, does my hair look like that? I think my hair kind of looks like that. I've got like old European guy hair. So it's an old one, but it's short. But Diana recommended it a long time ago, so obviously I automatically ordered it, and still haven't read it. So it's called Earths in the Universe. And hopefully I can read my own handwriting. So if you're listening to audio only, I put this in a hat that says "End UAP secrecy" from the patch that I got from the Signal. Shout out, Dan.
Oh, Dan, you beautiful creature.
All right. I'm gonna close my eyes.
Come on.
All right, let's see. I feel like we should just give it to Vinny.
I don't want charity. I don't want charity.
Oh, okay. Earthlight Revelation. I'm not even joking.
No way. Seriously.
Nice.
This is rewarding bad behavior.
Well done.
You didn't read the book this month, but you still got yours picked. But we're gonna let you have it. So we're gonna read Earthlight Revelation. I will make a post about it and have it on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. And that will be we are trying to do like the last Saturday or Sunday. It's the last weekend of February now. Holy cow. We're already planning in February. So that's fun. But yes, so we're going to do that. And then I wanted to ask everybody, I talked to Kelly about it yesterday, and this is all very last minute, about doing a space on Twitter tomorrow evening, which UK people will probably be sleeping. But it'll be after 6. I just haven't nailed down a time because I wanted to have more people have kind of wanted to be more included in book club, like from the community. So we're just here talking and people hang out in the chat, but there's other people that want to be able to engage about the book as well. So I want to set it up for this week, most likely tomorrow, because Kelly, that's the day she could do it. I'll get the information out as soon as we pick a time. And then you can join us on Twitter for a UFO Rabbit Hole UAP Book Club space. And we can actually talk to other people in the community and answer questions that way. So stay tuned for that. Don't feel obligated to make it. I know it's last minute, but it's something I would kind of like to do, like following up book club. So everybody let me know your thoughts on that in the chat or DM me, whatever. So did everybody get to say what they wanted to say? I want to thank Kelly and everybody in the chat for being here. And thank you to anybody watching or listening later. You guys have any closing comments?
I could sit here and spew pleasantries about everybody all day long, so I won't because I think it's become clear in this chat, and I think everything that we have been doing, we're going to continue doing, and we're going to keep growing from it, and together we're going to grow together, basically. So, yeah.
Oh, and Vinny put the link in the chat for the book. So thank you so much, because I don't utilize the chat as much as I should. I read it, but I don't put links. So, and please give everybody here a follow. Everybody's information is in the description. I put the link trees for everyone because that seems to be like the quickest way for everybody to have all the information. But I'm going to add inquiry to anomalous links as well, in case you want to watch some of those. A lot of them are free on YouTube. And then also more will be released on YouTube. And then if you want to just be like impatient and buy the whole thing, I'll put that link too. So everybody that's on the panel, hang out afterwards. Everybody else, have a great night. And I'll see some of you tomorrow in the space when it happens. And then if not, I will see you in a few weeks for my next guest, which is going to be Justin Bamforth. He's a author that writes about he started studying the Men in Black, people's encounters with the Men in Black. And then it kind of changed to this, like, just strange encounters with people, like strange people in general and the phenomena. So it's going to be fun to talk to him. Everybody have a great evening or night or morning, and I will see everyone soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.